All right, we're diving into some pretty murky waters today, folks.
No, yeah.
Biden's cybersecurity executive order.
Mhm.
It's a big one. It's complex.
For sure.
But it could have major implications for, well, all of us who use the digital world.
Definitely.
So think of this deep dive as your decoder ring
Okay.
to help you cut through the jargon, figure out the key changes it brings,
Right.
and maybe answer some of those questions that are still swirling around out there.
Yeah, especially.
Oh, and one more thing, just to add to the drama, Biden signed this just days before leaving office.
Oh, wow.
Talk about leaving everyone in suspense.
It definitely adds a layer of, well, uncertainty, doesn't it?
Yeah.
To really grasp why this order is so significant, though.
Yeah.
We need to zoom out a bit, look at the bigger picture.
Okay, so like set the stage.
Exactly. The cybersecurity landscape. And it's getting increasingly dangerous, even for, everyday people like you and me.
Right, it's not just theoretical anymore.
No.
I mean, take Silk Typhoon, for example, that campaign we read about where Chinese hackers targeted U.S. telecom and financial companies.
Yeah.
These attacks, they're not just like virtual,
No, not at all.
They can disrupt services we all rely on,
Uh-huh.
hit us in the wallet, even compromise our privacy.
Exactly. And it's not just about individual incidents. It's about the systemic vulnerabilities, that are being exploited.
Heck.
That's where this executive order comes in. It's like a multi-pronged approach
Okay.
to bolstering our defenses, really.
So like shoring up our defenses on multiple fronts.
Exactly.
But I'm curious, does this order reinvent the wheel, or is it more like building on what's already in place?
It definitely builds upon previous efforts, like Executive Order 14028
Mm-hmm.
and the National Cybersecurity Strategy.
Okay.
It's not starting from scratch.
Okay.
But it introduces some pretty significant changes, especially when it comes to third-party software.
Okay, so we're talking about all the software used by government agencies, a lot of which comes from, outside vendors.
Exactly.
And we've all heard about those vulnerabilities that pop up in software.
All the time.
Right.
And this order tackles that head on
Okay.
by setting much stricter security requirements for those vendors,
Okay.
especially the ones supplying software to federal agencies.
So they're going to have to prove their software is up to snuff?
Exactly. They need to demonstrate with verifiable proof
Okay.
that their software meets specific security standards.
Interesting. So on the one hand, that could lead to more secure software overall, which is good for everyone, right?
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I can't help but think, could this make software even more expensive?
That's a valid question. The cost implications are definitely something to watch.
Yeah.
Implementing these stricter security measures will likely increase costs for vendors.
Yeah.
And, well, those costs could trickle down to consumers.
It's that balance, isn't it,
Yeah.
between bolstering security and keeping costs manageable?
Absolutely. And it raises an important question, which will the benefits of increased security outweigh the potential costs?
That's a question we'll have to keep exploring as we dig deeper into this order. But for now, let's shift gears a bit and look at how this order impacts federal systems themselves.
Okay.
What kind of changes are we talking about here?
Well, you know how we're all seeing those phishing-resistant logins more and more on websites these days?
Yeah.
This order pushes for similar measures within government agencies,
Okay.
making it much harder for hackers to gain access to sensitive systems.
So making those systems harder to crack, reducing the risk of data breaches.
Right.
That's good news for anyone who doesn't want their personal information just floating around out there.
Precisely. But it goes beyond just logins.
Okay.
The order also calls for better protection for email and internet traffic within federal agencies.
Oh.
Essentially, it's trying to make those systems as impenetrable as possible.
Okay, so that's a pretty comprehensive approach to securing government systems.
It is.
But I'm also curious about how this order tackles the threats that hit a little closer to home for most people.
Yeah.
Cybercrime and fraud. What's being done on that front?
This is where things get really interesting.
Okay.
The order pushes for wider adoption of digital IDs,
Okay.
which could be a game changer in reducing identity theft.
Interesting.
Imagine a world where you have a secure, verifiable digital identity that you can use to access government services,
Yeah.
financial institutions, and more.
That sounds incredibly useful, especially for things like, like public benefit programs
Yeah.
where fraud is a real concern.
Absolutely. But
of course, the big question, what about the privacy implications of something like that?
right.
Wouldn't that require handing over even more personal information?
That's a crucial point, and it's something that needs to be carefully considered.
Yeah.
How do we balance the need for security and fraud prevention with the protection of individual privacy? It's a complex issue with no easy answers.
It definitely raises some important questions that we'll need to delve into further. But before we do that,
Yeah.
I want to touch on another aspect of this order that I found particularly intriguing.
Okay.
The focus on using cutting-edge tech, like AI, to combat cyber threats.
This is where we start to see a glimpse into the future of cybersecurity.
Okay.
Instead of just reacting to threats, the order envisions using AI to proactively identify and neutralize them.
So like AI systems that can analyze network traffic in real time,
Exactly.
detect suspicious patterns, and like take steps to mitigate threats before they even materialize?
Precisely. It's very
Next level.
It is. But of course, that requires massive amounts of data and processing power, which raises questions about the feasibility and scalability of implementing such technologies.
Right. It's not as simple as just flipping a switch.
No.
There are real-world challenges to consider. But speaking of challenges, there's another big one looming over this entire executive order.
Okay.
The fact that many of the deadlines for implementation extend beyond Biden's term.
That's the elephant in the room, isn't it?
It is.
The incoming Trump administration hasn't been very clear about their stance on this executive order. So there's a lot of uncertainty about whether it'll be fully implemented and what its long-term impact will be.
So we have this ambitious plan to overhaul cybersecurity, but its fate is kind of up in the air.
It is. It makes you wonder how much of this order will actually come to fruition.
That's a question we'll be exploring in more depth as we continue our deep dive into this executive order.
Definitely.
But before we move on,
Yeah.
I want to make sure we haven't missed any crucial details. Is there anything else about the context of this order you think our listener needs to know?
There's one more piece of the puzzle that we should address.
Okay.
The threat of ransomware.
Oh.
It's one of the most concerning cyber threats out there.
For sure.
And this order takes a multi-pronged approach to tackling it.
Okay, let's unpack that. What exactly is this order doing to combat ransomware?
Well, first, it makes it easier to target the finances of individuals and organizations involved in ransomware attacks.
So hitting them where it hurts, going after their wallets.
Exactly, making it harder for them to profit.
Yeah, I like the sound of that.
And secondly, it aims to discourage the payment of ransoms.
Okay.
By disrupting those financial incentives for attackers. The hope is to disincentivize these attacks altogether.
It's like taking a proactive stance, right?
Yeah.
Trying to prevent these attacks from happening in the first place.
Exactly.
Rather than just reacting after the damage is done.
It's a shift in strategy, moving from reactive to a more proactive approach.
Okay, I think that covers the main points of the context surrounding this executive order. But I'm eager to dig deeper into some of the specific provisions and their potential implications. Are you ready to unpack this a little further?
Absolutely. Let's dive in. One area where this executive order really digs deep is in its approach to securing the software supply chain.
Okay.
We touched on this earlier with the stricter requirements for vendors.
Right.
But it goes beyond just, setting standards.
Oh, really? What else is involved? I'm always fascinated by the behind-the-scenes stuff.
Yeah.
Things most people don't even think about.
Well, one fascinating aspect is the push for what's called a software bill of materials.
Okay.
Think of it like a list of ingredients for your software. It outlines all the components, libraries, modules that go into building a piece of software.
So kind of like a nutritional label, but for software.
Exactly.
That makes sense if you know exactly what's in it.
Yeah.
You can spot potential problems more easily.
Precisely. It's about transparency and accountability.
Okay.
If a vulnerability is discovered in a particular component, you can quickly trace it back to the source and take steps to mitigate the risk.
That's pretty ingenious, it seems like. This executive order is really trying to address those hidden vulnerabilities that often slip through the cracks.
It is, and that's particularly important when you consider the interconnectedness of our digital world.
Right.
A vulnerability in one piece of software can have a ripple effect across, entire systems, even those that seem completely unrelated.
It's that butterfly effect, right? One small change can have massive consequences.
Exactly. And that's why this focus on the software supply chain is so crucial.
Okay.
It's about building security from the ground up, ensuring that every component is as robust and resilient as possible.
Okay, I'm starting to see how all these pieces fit together. It's like a multi-layered approach, addressing cybersecurity from multiple angles. But I'm also curious about the practical implications of this executive order.
Okay.
How is this going to affect the day-to-day work of the people on the front lines of cybersecurity?
Well, for one thing, it's likely to lead to a significant increase in the demand for skilled cybersecurity professionals.
So a potential boon for the cybersecurity job market?
Yep.
That's good news for anyone looking to get into the field.
Yes.
But it also sounds like a potential challenge.
It is.
If we don't have enough qualified people to fill those roles.
That's a valid concern. There's already a significant shortage of cybersecurity professionals.
Right.
And this executive order could, well, exacerbate that problem.
Yeah.
It's going to be crucial to invest in training and education.
Okay.
To develop the workforce we need to meet these new demands.
It sounds like this executive order is going to have a ripple effect throughout the entire tech sector, not just for those directly involved in cybersecurity.
Absolutely. And that brings us to another important aspect of this order.
Okay.
The potential impact on innovation.
Okay.
We talked earlier about the potential for increased costs.
Right.
But there's also a flip side to that coin.
Oh. Tell me more. I'm always interested in hearing about the potential for positive outcomes.
Well, think about it this way.
Okay.
When you set higher standards, raise the bar for security, you're essentially creating a challenge for the tech industry to rise to the occasion.
So necessity breeds innovation. It's like forcing companies to come up with new and better ways to do things.
Exactly. This executive order could be a catalyst for a new wave of innovation in cybersecurity.
Okay.
Leading to the development of cutting-edge technologies and solutions.
Okay, now that's exciting.
It is.
It's like turning a potential problem into an opportunity.
Precisely. And it's not just about technological innovation.
Okay.
It's also about fostering a culture of security within organizations. When security becomes a top priority, it drives changes in the way we design, develop, and deploy technology.
So it's about shifting the mindset.
Yeah.
Making security an integral part of the process.
Right.
Rather than an afterthought.
Exactly. And that's a fundamental shift that could have a profound impact on the long-term security of our digital world.
Okay, I'm seeing how this executive order is about much more than just ticking boxes and meeting compliance requirements.
It is.
It's about driving meaningful change and raising the bar for cybersecurity across the board.
It is. And it's important to remember that this isn't just a domestic issue.
Right, of course.
Cyber threats are global.
Yeah.
And this executive order recognizes the need for international collaboration.
You can't build digital walls around our country, right?
Yeah.
We need to work together to address these challenges.
Exactly.
But I'm curious, how does this order actually promote international collaboration? What concrete steps are being taken?
Well, for one thing, the order calls for increased information sharing between the U.S. and its allies. This includes sharing intelligence about cyber threats, best practices for mitigation, even coordinating responses to major incidents.
So it's about breaking down those silos and working together to create a more unified front against cyber threats.
Exactly. The order also encourages joint research and development efforts.
Okay.
Pooling resources and expertise to develop, new cybersecurity solutions.
That's a smart approach. Why reinvent the wheel when we can work together and leverage each other's strengths, right?
Precisely. And it's not just about working with traditional allies.
Okay.
The order also recognizes the need to engage with other countries, even those with, different political systems or cybersecurity approaches.
That sounds like a delicate balancing act.
Yeah.
How do you navigate those differences and build trust in a world where cyber espionage is so prevalent?
It's definitely a challenge, but the reality is cyber threats don't respect borders.
Right.
And we need to find ways to work together, even with countries that we may not always agree with.
It's like recognizing we have a common enemy in these cyber threats, even if we don't always see eye to eye on other issues.
Exactly. And that's where diplomacy and international cooperation become crucial.
Right.
We need to build bridges, establish lines of communication, find areas of common ground where we can work together to address these shared challenges.
Okay, I'm seeing how this executive order is about much more than just technology and policy. It's also about diplomacy and building trust on a global scale.
It is, and it's a reminder that cybersecurity isn't just an issue for governments and corporations.
Right.
It affects all of us. We all have a role to play in making our digital world more secure.
That brings us back to the individual listener, doesn't it? What can everyday people do to protect themselves in this increasingly complex digital landscape?
That's a great question.
It is.
And it's one that we should definitely explore further.
Okay.
But before we delve into the practical steps that individuals can take, I think it's important to address another key aspect of this executive order.
Okay.
Its potential impact on privacy.
Ah, yes, the privacy elephant in the room. We touched on this earlier with digital IDs.
Right.
But I'm sure there are other areas where this executive order raises privacy concerns. Am I right?
Yeah, it's a tricky balance, right? Trying to make things more secure, but without, sacrificing those individual freedoms.
It is a bit of a tightrope walk. And this executive order is, it's definitely walking that line.
Okay.
For example, there are provisions in there
Yeah.
that aim to expand the government's ability to monitor internet traffic, looking for malicious activity. And while, the intention might be good.
Right, to stop cyber attacks before they happen.
Right, exactly. But it does raise concerns about, potential overreach and the erosion of privacy.
It's that classic debate, isn't it? Security versus privacy.
It is.
And finding the right balance is, well, it's never easy.
That's tough.
But I'm curious, how does this executive order itself address those privacy concerns? Does it, offer any safeguards? It does. It attempts to address those concerns.
Okay.
By emphasizing the need for transparency and oversight.
Okay.
For example, it calls for the creation of new privacy and civil liberties boards.
Okay.
To review the implementation of these security measures and ensure that they're not being used in a way that violates individual rights.
So it's like building in checks and balances.
Exactly.
To prevent abuse.
Yeah, to make sure things don't go too far.
That's somewhat reassuring, but it also sounds like it's going to be a real challenge.
Oh, for sure.
To get those safeguards right.
It will be. It will be. And it's something that will require ongoing scrutiny and debate as these new measures are implemented.
Yeah, we need to make sure that we're not sacrificing our fundamental freedoms in the name of security, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a conversation that we need to keep having as technology continues to evolve and the threats become more and more sophisticated.
For sure. Speaking of that evolving threat landscape, I'm curious to get your perspective on something.
Okay.
This executive order seems very focused on, addressing the current threats we face.
Yeah.
But what about the future? How does it prepare us for what's coming down the pipeline?
That's a great question. And it's one that the order doesn't, explicitly address.
Okay.
But I think there are a few key takeaways from this order.
Okay.
That are relevant to the future of cybersecurity.
Okay, I'm all ears. What are those takeaways?
Well, first, this order highlights the importance of a multifaceted approach to cybersecurity.
Okay.
It's not just about technology. It's about policy. It's about international cooperation, public awareness, even ethics. So
it's about recognizing that cybersecurity is not just an IT issue. It's a societal issue that requires a holistic approach.
Exactly. And secondly, this order emphasizes the importance of adaptability.
Okay.
And innovation. The cyber threat landscape is constantly evolving, so we need to be constantly learning, adapting and developing new solutions to stay ahead of the curve.
It's like an arms race, right?
It is.
We're constantly trying to outmaneuver the bad guys who are always coming up with new and creative ways to exploit our vulnerability.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to foster a culture of innovation in cybersecurity. We need to be thinking outside the box, experimenting with new technologies, challenging conventional wisdom if we want to stay ahead of the game.
Okay, so multifaceted approach and adaptability, those are two key takeaways for the future of cybersecurity. Anything else we should keep in mind?
Well, I think that the third key takeaway is that cybersecurity is ultimately about people.
Okay.
It's about protecting people, their data, their livelihoods.
Right. It's not just about protecting machines.
Right.
It's about protecting the humans who rely on those machines.
Exactly. And that means that we need to be thinking about the human element in everything we do in cybersecurity. how do we design secure systems that are also, user-friendly?
Right.
How do we educate people about the risks?
Yeah.
And empower them to make informed decisions about their digital security? These are questions that will only become more and more important as technology becomes more integrated into our lives.
Those are really thought-provoking points. It's like you're saying that the future of cybersecurity is not just about, technical prowess.
Yeah.
It's about understanding human behavior.
Yes. And
Psychology.
It is. And it's about recognizing that cybersecurity is not just a technical challenge. It's a social challenge.
Yeah.
We need to build a culture of security that is inclusive, equitable,
right,
and respects the rights of all individuals.
Wow, that's a powerful vision for the future of cybersecurity.
It is.
And I think it's a fitting note to end our deep dive on.
I agree.
We've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
From, the specifics of this executive order to its broader implications for the future of cybersecurity. But I think the most important takeaway is this: cybersecurity is a journey, not a destination.
I couldn't agree more. It's an ongoing process of learning, adapting, and collaborating to create a more secure and resilient digital world.
Well said. And to our listener, we hope this deep dive has given you a better understanding of the challenges we face and the steps we're taking to address them. But remember, cybersecurity is everyone's responsibility.
Absolutely.
Stay informed, stay vigilant.
Be proactive.
And take proactive steps to protect yourself and your data.
Absolutely. And don't be afraid to ask questions, seek out resources, and engage in the conversation. The more we talk about cybersecurity, the better equipped we'll be to create a safer digital world for everyone.
That's a great message to end on. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Biden's cybersecurity executive order.
It's my pleasure.
We hope you found it informative and thought-provoking. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe,
and stay
connected.